Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John and it's time for a review of the eagerly anticipated sophomore album by the former One Direction member Harry Styles. This is called Fine Line. Even back in the days of One Direction, I could see it, but instead of running a Harry Styles stan account on Twitter, I just started talking positively about him on my channel, and look at where that led us. Harry's debut self-titled album is phenomenal. It's actually one of my favorite records of the decade. Every song just stands out to me in some special way. It's always led, of course, by Harry's natural charisma that bleeds out all over the track list, but there's a lot of other features that are hard to ignore. It's a hard act to follow, that's for sure, but I love that Harry didn't take the easy solo route at all. He dropped Jaws with his debut single Sign of the Times in 2017, which, sorry other lads from 1D, this blows anything that they've ever done solo out of the water. Now for album 2, Harry continues to hone his rock influences of yesteryear on a longer, more personal LP that sees Harry indeed being quite candid about sex and sadness. Lights Up dropped in October as the lead single from Fine Line, and I found it to be really individualistic with some standout traits. It's got a loose structure that moves into a lot of uncharted territory for the singer, but it also lays a foundation you might not get behind with just a single listen or two. Watermelon Sugar was more instantly catchy, summery, and fun, but maybe didn't feel as compelling as Lights Up. Both were still pretty great in their own ways, so how did Fine Line, the album, turn out? We can't talk about the new Harry Styles record without, at the very least, mentioning the overwhelming sense of nostalgic influence from the artists that came decades before him. Everything from ABBA to Queen to Fleetwood Mac, the Beatles, and many more can be heard influenced on Fine Line, and while it's certainly an intriguing homage, it can get tedious in the spaces where Harry doesn't feel as engaged, or else is kind of camouflaged into the sound his band is taking inspiration from. Rest assured, that does not kill Harry's form overall though. I'm really enjoying the wide open range he hits in stride this time. Most songs feel like opening a little door of a miniature replica of a real-life house, a fly-on-the-walls peek into humanity, and the artistic expression, if you will. The general theme of the album does in fact involve its title, trying to find the fine line between being content and striving for more, between happy and sad, and all of the other things life can toss our way. Along the ride, we're served some delectable bass lines that really feel like some extra attention was poured into them, but you could say the same for the way the guitars and keys were mixed. The instrumental sections mostly feel fresh enough to dance or cry to, but perhaps even better is Harry's vocal range and attitude that helps sell the different angles the track in question is taking. Writing from the optimistic perspective of someone else, or perhaps a vision of a different version of himself, there's Canyon Moon. Ballad territory on the verge of a breakdown? Well, you've got Falling. Rinse and repeat, the man and his band plus the producers have a knack for finding what works best for Harry, so even though it does feel largely indebted to the acts that came years before him, it's captivating nonetheless. Unequivocally, this is an album from Harry Styles that does not bend or break to anything other than his own vision for the songs. While there's plenty of pop per se on this record, it's by no means a modern sounding pop album, as that genre tag meant something else entirely decades ago. This is feel-good music turned to sad boy music, turned to look for the deeper meaning inside yourself music that doesn't always swim in the deep end, but the simple ideas are taken and packaged in a way that feels authentic. I don't really know how else to express that.
Oh no, one of those look for the hidden meaning songs.
Fans will certainly send themselves into a frenzy trying to figure out what Harry's trying to say or who he's singing about, but some moments are more obvious and open in regards to the lover in question, given that one of his ex-girlfriends literally appears on the track Cherry. This is a high-spirited, nostalgic feeling, wind in your sail listen that puts Harry's prowess to great use over the course of 12 effective songs. Let's jump over to the tracklist breakdown to see what really stood out. I'm gonna do things a little bit differently for Fine Line because again, I feel that this album is a bit unofficially divided up into sections. Tracks 1 through 3 dealing with love and infatuation, starting with Golden, and then track 4, Lights Up, talking about the pressures of fame, and then 5 through 7, we've got the heartbreak and the heartache and the swelling of emotions. And then, after that, I feel that on tracks 8 through 12, we kind of get a mix of daydreams and memories, and looking at what could have been, but also maybe what is in the future. Why not start off by talking about the opening track, Golden, because this album does have an order to it that is intentional, so we're gonna go in order as we break down the tracks. Golden is something that I really changed my mind on, because at first, while I did love the majority of the song, I found the backing vocals a little bit annoying. But then, wow, my mind played the reverse Uno card because I changed my mind completely. The backing vocals, the way that they're chopped up, really work quite well, and I find this to be pure bliss in song form. I can't even change my mind on that at this point. It's like waking up in the middle of a beautiful meadow with the sun shining down on you, with true love being on your mind. You know you're with the person that you were meant to be with, and then those breezy guitars, the inflection that Harry sings with on this tune. It's something that he pronounces certain phrases like, I know you're scared because hearts get broken, and the way that he uses golden as an adjective that feels really, really positive. Everything about this track is amazing, and you could say that I adore it. Okay, that was a cheap shot, but Adore You should absolutely be a hit single because this is a smashing pop rhythm that feels like it has a universally relatable message that doesn't really have its lyrics pandering all that much. Oh, and are we gonna talk about that guitar at the end of the track? Because that kind of surprised me. It really snuck up on me, but it works so well. A little soloing going on there, and Harry's band overall, I know he always gives them the credit where it's due, but I have to as well. His band worked with him on this. Also, again, the producers. Everybody just seems to know what's really working for Harry. Cherry features a really apparent Fleetwood Mac influence, which I'm definitely a-okay with, and apparently Stevie Nicks from Fleetwood Mac is as well. She's a big fan, referred to Harry as her muse, and performed with him at his concert where he premiered all of the songs live from this new album, Fine Line. And Cherry is one that feels very expressive, emotional. It hits a crescendo as it rolls on. I love that it adds in the live drumming towards the end of the track. The guitars become a little bit more pronounced in the mix. And also Harry, the way that he delivers things. Also the voicemail that's kind of chopped up from an ex-girlfriend at the end and even beginning of this track. It all works extremely well. Falling comes immediately after that, and this could easily fall into generic piano ballad territory, but the difference here is the way that Harry actually pronounces certain words and makes his emotions stand out. I do think that maybe it's not necessarily a top favorite for me, but it's grown on me a whole lot. It could have easily just gotten blended in and Harry could have phoned in some emotional stakes, sure, but also something that didn't feel as real. This feels extremely raw, especially when he's singing the hook and the falling. Everything just makes you fall in line with his way of thinking. Up next, we have To Be So Lonely, which gives us such a diverse little twist with breathy vocals that make this feel very raw and intimate. His band reaches a nice range of instrumentation here with a cello looping in the mix. Also, that stuttered, looped little riff throughout the entire song is something that I'm really drawn to. I feel that this track kind of gives Harry a little bit of closure. At least he's seeking it out. And it kind of ends the cycle of this little trilogy that we were on from tracks 5 through 7. Then, oh boy, then after that, we get something that's in between Bruno Mars and Michael Jackson, 80s and modern. It's Harry Styles lying in between with She. This is such a sexy, sultry, 80s leaning moment that really wowed me. I will say that there wasn't anything on the record that necessarily just made my jaw drop like Sign of the Times, but still, something like She, it really impressed me. This track to me just builds and builds and builds. It sees Harry putting himself in the shoes of maybe his own self, a different version of himself, if he had made some different decisions. And also, as the track goes on, we wind up the suspense. I mean, it runs for 6 minutes, but it doesn't feel like it. And that guitar outro, his guitarist Mitch apparently came up with that while the entire band was on shrooms. So, doing psychedelic drugs, making a track like this, I would probably do that and just ram my head into the wall in a corner somewhere. So instead of trying to be creative, I'll just listen to songs like this. Sunflower Volume 6 is up next, and I can only guess that they added the Volume 6 to make it stand out from all of the other Sunflowers like Vampire Weekend, Post Malone, and more that have been dropping in the past couple of years. But this track is so sharp. I love the backing vocals here. It feels absolutely timeless. In fact, it's kind of rivaling itself as being one of the best songs on the record for me. I just feel this overwhelming sense of happiness radiating off of this track. It's euphoric to listen to. Even the way that he sings Sunflower at the end of the chorus, it gives me chills, man. Canyon Moon was apparently Stevie Nicks' favorite song on the record, so you can't go wrong there. This is something that has these gorgeous vocals, the great acoustic guitars, something that guides this song with such a sweet cadence, it's really impossible to resist. Harry feels very influenced by the music of the Laurel Canyon area. Apparently he used to own property out there, so I can see why that gave him some ambition to maybe write a song like this. Treat People with Kindness swings in as an uplifting anthem, the mantra of his fandom in a way, which I really do appreciate. This is definitely a massive tune, like it checks a lot of boxes along the way with everything that it does, and that scuttling guitar groove in the background, just don't fight it. You're gonna dance right there along with Harry. I really appreciate and love the way that he sings the verses. It's very different even for Harry on this record, and the high notes that back him leading up to that chorus, those are such a nice touch. I will say that the hook does get a bit annoying the more that you hear this track. I wish that there was more from Harry, at least in that part of the song, but you know what? It's so fun overall. It's such a good feeling that I'm just gonna let it go. We close with the title track Fine Line, which is a slow-churning folky ballad that sees Harry wallow just a bit to close out the album. I definitely feel his pain and frustration and burnout within the track, but I think my biggest complaint here is that it doesn't feel like it has a real reason to be more than 6 minutes long. It could have easily wrapped up in 4, but instead we get that repeated phrase, "will be a fine line," that doesn't get much out of me other than a shrug, at least after a while. It's a bit of an underwhelming closer, although it's far from being bad. I don't think there's a bad song on the entire record. I just feel that Harry stays in this high octave range far too much. Really the entire song, he's up there. I don't care for the way that he styled it. I just wish that there had maybe been a little bit more offered to the listener, since this is the closing moment, the one that we're left with, but it's such a kind of strange note to go out on. Overall, once again, Harry Styles has impressed me with his sophomore album here on Fine Line. This is something that I maybe don't love quite as much as his self-titled debut, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 to, so naturally, it feels proper to give this a 4. Thank you again for watching my review of the new Harry Styles record. If you want to see my thoughts on his debut album, then tap this card here, or tap here for another recent review. All of my socials can be found in the description down below, and if you happen to be new to the channel, then please subscribe and join the neighborhood. Anything else is probably in the description as well, and I'll see you soon for more right here on ARTV.